Well, hello and happy St. Patrick's Day. What are we watching today? Well, I watched Grabbers, which is a lovely little film that takes place on Aran Island, Republic of Ireland, appropriately enough, right? Anyway, if you're new to the channel, before we get into it, I'll just give you a little heads up. What I do is I watch a movie and I sit down here and I talk about it. Just spur of the moment, one take, no script, no jump cuts, unless it's like absolutely necessary. And that's the gist of it. So, you know, it's for better or for worse. If that's something you're into, awesome. If not, no offense taken if you don't feel like watching the rest of this. Anyway, spoiler alert, you know the drill. What I will be doing is explaining a synopsis, which will have spoilers. So if you don't want spoilers, you can skip ahead on the timestamp to the thoughts section, which is 99% of the time spoiler free. Anyway, let us begin with the film Grabbers. So we start with a lovely shot of a green comet flying over Earth, over the Sea of Ireland area of Irish Sea, is that what it's called? I don't know where exactly it is. It's off the coast of Ireland though, over the sea. Fishing boat finds them, finds the landing site in the water, of course, and goes to investigate and immediately gets pulled into the water and killed. So there we go. There's the first death right off the bat. Cool. And we cut to a ferry landing on Aran Island, where one of our protagonists disembarks. So we are introduced to Lisa Nolan, who is an officer from mainland, from Dublin, who is coming to relieve someone who's going on vacation or something like that. Anyway, she's brought to the island and goes to meet her partner in crime. Well, it's for like 2 weeks or something like that. So her partner for the next 2 weeks, who is not completely standoffish, but initially you can tell he's like, why do I need a partner? I can handle this on myself. There's like no crime here, which he mentions later on. Anyway, we are introduced to the sergeant and everything, and they're all getting set up and whatnot, and he even pulls the sergeant aside. I think it's the sergeant, maybe it's the captain, I don't know. Anyway, his superior pulls him aside and is like, is this really necessary? And basically, yes, it is. So this other officer that lives there goes by the name of O'Shea, and he has a very slight drinking problem. Not like to the point of no redemption, no return, that kind of stuff, but he likes to withhold, or not withhold, but operate with a buzz. That's all. That's the best I can say. He doesn't get like shit-faced drunk, but he does have a flask with him at all times, whatever. Anyway, turns out there's this whole story where like his wife died and he just couldn't get over it or something. Anyway, we find out that that's not true, but his wife did leave him, so whatever. Anyway, their first mission is to go to a beach area where a bunch of pilot whales have washed up. And we introduce another one of our main characters by the name of Smith. He's a marine biologist. I think he's from the UK. His accent is different. I'm not phenomenal with accents, but I'm going to say probably, or at least a different part of Ireland, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, he's a marine biologist, and he's a little bit perplexed. He's like, yeah, like, this happens occasionally, but this is, like, the number of them that washed up is crazy here. So he doesn't really know what's going on either, which, cool, that's great. Anyway, long story short, they have, like, marks on them, like injuries, and he writes it off as basically, yeah, I kicked the table, brilliant. He writes that off as basically being, you know, when they washed on the shore, they probably hit rocks and got scraped up or something like that. So that's great. But he's a little bit perplexed. Anyway, on the way back, there's a good joke. I don't know, I laughed. Lisa was not impressed, but O'Shea, I guess, trying to break the ice and warm things up a little bit. He goes to Lisa and says, hey, what's this? She's like, I don't know. And he's like, a dead one of these. And I laughed because that's so stupid. She was less impressed and enthusiastic, but whatever. I thought that was great. Anyway, we find out that meanwhile, while this is going on, a fisherman or lobsterman or something by the name of Paddy has caught something in one of his traps. And lo and behold, this is what we will eventually be known as Grabbers, his name. The marine biologist does not want to name it that. And then when they bring in the sample, anyway. But yeah, so he has one. He has it in the bathtub. and he meets O'Shea at the pub, and they have a little chat. He's like, "You would not believe what I have," and he's like, "All right, tell me what you got." He's like, "I got a sea monster. It's in my bathtub." And I mean, that's just ridiculous, right? So obviously O'Shea just looks at him. He's like, "All right, good night, Patty." There's a little subplot too of the pub hotel owner's name is Brian. I can't remember his wife's name, unfortunately, but his wife is like wants to play matchmaker with Lisa and O'Shea. So that's like her little side story. Anyway, not super important, but it's just a fun little addition. Yeah, so there's a guy late at night who's in his home with his wife, and someone knocks on his door, and he goes and answers the door, and he's like, "Oh, it's the town drunk, basically." No, not O'Shea. Town drunk, and he's kind of just like hanging on to something kind of unstable. And he falls, and the guy goes out and is like, "Oh my god, are you okay?" And instantly gets like harpooned through the back, through his chest, by a big ass thing. So this big ass thing is a large grabber. So what they do is they have like a frog-like tongue with like a vampiric, I don't know, like a mosquito proboscis thing. So they drink blood essentially with use of this frog-like tongue. A little bit of Jason 3D for you. Anyway, stupid. So yeah, it gets this guy, and then it goes and gets the wife and all that, and good times. Anyway, next day we have, same night, O'Shea goes up to Lisa's because he's being egged on, like, she kind of fancies you, right? And he's like, ah. Anyway, I guess he assumes maybe she does, worth a shot, right? I'll shoot my shot. She cute, I get it. So he goes up, so stupid. So he goes up and knocks on her door, and she kind of politely is like, "No, you're drunk. Like, that's not good. How about we get you to bed?" Then we cut to the next day where he wakes up in the drunk tank. So she just brought him to the drunk tank, which is hilarious. She says, "Yeah, I couldn't, you passed out before I could find your home, so whatever, there you go." That's the law, right? The drunk tank. Anyway, they're driving again. I can't remember the exact reason, but they end up seeing the town drunk's truck outside this farmhouse or beach house or whatever you want to call it. Like, that's interesting. They go to the house, and there seems to be like, looks like something was on the roof a little bit. There's like a piece of like clothing torn hanging from the chimney. So they go up, and the wife was pulled through the chimney, by the way. Anyway, it's that house, lo and behold. Lisa climbs up a ladder, goes on the top, is pulling on the thing, and pulls hard enough that out of the chimney pops the guy's head, which scares the bejesus out of them. They go to the coroner. The coroner is like, "Okay," and they're like, "So what did this?" And he's like, "I don't know. It's a severed head. Like, what do you want from me?" Probably an animal attack. I mean, that's the best I can tell you. It's like, all right, well, that's it's not ideal. So they're still not fully aware of these grabbers at the time. But anyway, they that's when Patty enters, and he brings in, I think this is when he brings it in, but anyway, at some point he brings in the dead grabber that he had, because it attacked him in his house. He survived it, and he stomped it, and whatnot. He brings in the remains of it. It's motionless, dead, right? Assumed. And our marine biologist Smith is looking at it like, I don't even know where to begin with this. Like, what? This is not something I've seen. It's like an entirely new branch of the tree of life or something. Like, it's just bizarre. What they are is they kind of look like, creature spoiler alert, but this is the spoiler section, so whatever. They kind of look like a big ball of tentacles with like a octopus mouth. Like, how octopus have those beaks or whatever, but the beaks are like shark teeth, kind of like curved. Anyway, that's what this thing is. And so that's unusual. He doesn't know what it is. They end up investigating. Patty tells the story, and he's like, there are eggs and everything too, and they're like, okay, well, this could be an issue, right? So they go, and they eventually figure out that, based on attack areas, now assuming that the whales were attacked as well. So the pilot whales, the head, Patty's fishing lobster area, whatever it is, they assume, okay, this is the creature's region, so that's great. So Patty's part of the team now, because he's like the only one who has experience with these things. So they go to this like beachside cave or whatever, and they go inside of it, and They're looking around, and sure enough, there's a big-ass one in there. And it turns out this is the male, and the one that he was fighting, the tiny one, was like the female or something like that. So they've been doing their thing and making eggs and whatnot. And anyway, the male attacks and what have you. I can't remember exactly where they figure it out, but long story short, they escape from this creature, and they come back, and they immediately go to the marine biologist place, and they burn the creature. And then Smith is kind of like, guys, and then the sprinkler system goes off and whatever. And it turns out that the water revives it. So we find out that these things require blood and water, and that's basically it. Anyway, of course, this thing's revived, it attacks, latches onto O'Shea, and he pulls it off and kicks it to the ground, and it starts like coughing up blood, and it looks not too great. And they just destroy it. They like stomp the complete shit out of it. Anyway, long story short, they find out that these things, it reacted that way because O'Shea had a pretty high blood alcohol level, so they're allergic to alcohol. I mean, that's good to know. So the plan is, okay, well, first of all, let's contact the Coast Guard. Unfortunately, there's a big storm coming in, and so they won't be able to come that night, and they're not even able to tell them what's going on, because I think the phone gets cut off or the radio gets cut off or something like that. Anyway, so the plan, get everyone drunk. That's what we got to do. But first we got to test to make sure that theory makes sense. So what do? They get Lisa drunk because she's basically never been drunk. She's really nervous about it, but like, she'll be the easiest to test the difference between her blood alcohol at 0 and her blood alcohol spiking up. So they do that. Regular blood, obviously, the cells or flesh or whatever it is reacts fine, her little mouth thing. The alcohol, however, kills it. Like, it actually kills it. It doesn't just like make it dormant or motionless or whatever. It dies. It's okay. It's proven. At this point, Lisa's kind of shit-faced, like, very much so. And to that, I will have a drink. So we have, unfortunately, I don't have Irish whiskey, so I'm a fail. This is Canadian. It's just Crown Royal, just your basic whatever. But you gotta have whiskey on St. Patrick's Day, right? Anyway, my blood levels are not nearly what Lisa's were. So what do? They got to get everyone to the bar. The plan is, okay, they go and talk to Brian, the owner of the pub bar establishment. They bring the remains of this creature. They tell him everything. He's like, what the fuck? Okay, sure, I'm in. But they don't want everyone to panic. So what they do, O'Shea and very drunk Lisa interrupt a church service that's going on and invites everyone to the pub. And everyone's kind of like, I don't know. And then they say free bar. And so everyone's in, obviously. Even the pastor is like, yeah, and he just starts going, which is good. So that begins. They have like a good old pub night. I'm not, I've never been to Ireland, so I don't know what the nightlife in pubs are, but it looks like what your stereotypical Irish pub night would be. Lots of drinking, singing, dancing. There's even a little bit of a brawl later on. Anyway, regardless, everyone's doing pretty good. One guy, however, has to take a piss, but the bathroom's being used, so he goes outside. Unfortunately, he's only had 2 pints, so his blood alcohol level is not at a level that is required for these things to not like his blood. So he gets got, basically. They try to save him and whatnot, but literally the thing just appears, sees his body, spits his head out right at them, so that's great. They run into the bar, and they're quickly like, okay guys, I got a great idea, let's move this to the upstairs, which is where all the hotel rooms are. And one guy's like, what kind of party is this? He's like, it's for safety reasons, whatever. And okay, anyway. This is when not only is a big thing there, a bunch of little larval ones are there. Anyway, it eventually starts trying to break through the door with one of the patrons' sheep. So it's smashing a sheep against the door. We don't see this, but that's what they say. They look out the window and see it. They all run upstairs. Now they're fully aware of what is going on. So that's a little bit helpful. At least they know there's a danger, right? They're trying to figure out, okay, well, we denied it blood, right? The only other thing it needs is water. So what if we deny it that? But then someone is very cleverly pointing out, it's pouring out there. Okay, but it's not going to rain forever. What if, hear me out, Patty caught his in the lobster trap. It could not get out of that. What if we catch it in something, hoist it up, and let it dry out? That could work. What can we do? Let's lead it to there's like a construction work site or whatever outside of town. There's like crane, bulldozers, backhoes, all that stuff. So we'll use the crane to hoist it up. We'll capture it and do that. We need the keys to the truck, however, to drive it off. Where is that? Downstairs. Shit. Okay. Well, everyone's pretty drunk except for O'Shea, who volunteered to stay sober so he can be the mind of it at least, which, I mean, yeah, sure, why not? Good for him too for not drinking, right? I mean, it's a hell of a time to stop drinking. Regardless, Lisa's still by far the most drunk out of everyone there, so she's like, I'll tell you what, I'll go get the keys. And she's all drunk and like slurring, and I'm like, okay, I guess that makes sense, right? So she does. She goes downstairs, and all the little ones are looking at her, all the larval ones, and they're jumping on her, and she like uses a nail gun to put one against like the bar table, and then another one's like biting her leg, and she kicks it, and anyway. Needless to say, she gets to the truck, and in the madness, there's of the downstairs. Okay, so like when she gets downstairs, all these little ones are being like belligerent. Obviously they're not drunk, but they're like smashing the place and throwing things around and pushing chairs over and everything. And in the scuffle of her getting outside, a little fire starts, so that's great, and everyone's upstairs and the fire's downstairs. Fantastic. Anyway, needless to say, she gets the truck, she pulls up, and O'Shea's upstairs, and he goes down to the truck, and they speed off, and this thing sees them and chases them. It's no longer trying to get into the pub. So great, that worked. Diversion. What about the fire? Well, this is the only thing in the film that I was like, what about the fire? Because I had that same exact thought. Well, I guess the patrons, we just assume, put it out. So it's never talked about again. At the end of the movie, you see the pub, and it's like perfectly fine, no fire damage. So obviously the patrons put it out when the thing was gone, and they didn't have to worry about it. Cool. Anyway, they're driving, they get to construction site, and they're like, is the thing still following us? Yes, it is. Okay, great. Where's the crane? Ah, shit. Crane's not there. That's kind of puts a damper in the plan. That was the whole point of everything. So, quick thinking. When they went to the bar, everyone grabbed some weapons, right? There wasn't a hell of a lot, to be honest. One guy had a super soaker filled with basically like a homebrew alcohol that Patty had made or something like that. So, like, super high alcohol. He almost dies because he goes out in the rain and the little fire at the tip gets extinguished. I mean, he's drunk, so he doesn't know any better, right? They're all drunk. They have to be. That's their only protection. Anyway, that was a good fail. What else? There's a flare gun. So that's what O'Shea has with him. He's got the flare gun. He looks quickly, sees oil drums. He's like, okay. So he climbs up and he's going against like scaffolding and stuff to try to lure the thing to the area where the oil drums are. He's like, come and get me, blah, blah, blah. And I guess he forgot that they have like that frog-like tongue, because what does it do? It frog tongues him, sticks through him, pulls him down, he falls. That's not good. Needless to say, here comes Lisa to save the day. She's driving a backhoe, ends up pushing the thing over the edge of like the quarry or whatever, and takes the backhoe over the quarry as well, pinning it to the ground. That's fantastic. We can dispose of it later, but let's get the hell out of here first. So they're climbing up. She pulls up O'Shea, and they have like almost a little moment for like a half a second before a tentacle comes up and grabs O'Shea and pulls him right the fuck back down. So as they're pulling him, O'Shea has in his pocket, I guess he planned on this as well, a bottle of Patty's special homebrew alcohol. And he dumps it in the creature's mouth, and it screams and drops him, and it's thrashing around, still pinned under this backhoe. And he scurries away with enough distance to aim at it with his flare gun. Poof, and boom, that thing's fucking toast. And yeah, then they kind of limp out of there, which is great. I forgot to mention, Smith had this theory that it's an animal. It doesn't necessarily want to hurt anyone, and he is all juiced out of his face, so like things aren't as clear as they should be, right? Big giant monster. He's out there taking pictures of it. And he's so drunk, the creature sniffs him and backs up a little bit. And he's like, see, it's just an animal. It doesn't want to hurt us. Lo and behold, like seconds after he says that, tentacle smacks him and he goes flying off into the horizon. So that was pretty good. I assume he's dead. Like, I don't know, maybe he flew into the water and is fine, but we never hear from him again. So I'm assuming he's dead. But noble thought. You know, I guess they are technically animals. They're aliens though too, right? Because they came from that comet thing, so whatever. Anyway, next morning, O'Shea's leg is hurt from when he fell, and they're kind of like hobbling back down this road. Town is like way off in the distance. It's already dawn. Maybe they're halfway there. I don't know. And they're talking, and she hands him his flask, and he looks at it, and he throws it away. And it's like, really? And he's like, yeah, that was a bad idea. And he like fakes to go run and get it. But no, basically he's giving up alcohol. There's a little bit of a like romance established now, finally, where they confess, you know, it's good. They have a little smoochy thing, and he's like, well, you know, maybe you don't have to go back to the mainland, you know, implying she will likely stay, and I think she does, in all fairness, which is great. And then we pan out, and again we see them like halfway down the road, town way down there, sun just rising. Cut to a picture of the beach, and it's several different shots, different parts of the beach. Then we see the rocks, and lo and behold, there is a little egg clutch in the rocks, and something inside of it moves, and then the credits roll. So, our friends the Grabbers are not dead. Just the big one and the mom and all the little baby ones, but there's a whole new clutch of eggs. To be continued, credits roll. Cool. What did I think? This was fun. I thoroughly enjoyed this film. Apparently they had a relatively low budget, but it didn't really look like it. I mean, it didn't look like perfect or anything, but the CGI for the creatures was pretty decent for the most part. It looked better than some higher budget films, because let's be real, a lot of places don't really know how to use CGI. So, that being said, quite fun to watch. None of the characters were too cartoony. Even Patty, who was a little bit more of a character than the others, was still a reasonable character. Like, you could meet someone like this. All these people, you could essentially meet people like this. There was no like completely ridiculous, and yet there was still comedy to it, which was great. The creatures were genuinely threatening. I mean, the thing's like the size of, I don't know, like an Allosaurus. So like, it's not like a kaiju size or anything like that, but it's big, and you know, a single person is not going to fight the big one off by himself without some kind of weapon or help or strategy or trap or something, right? So that was cool. There weren't a lot of deaths, not a lot of gore, but I mean, you didn't need it for this kind of a film, so that's not an issue for me at all. The acting was generally good for the most part too, and again, with the characters, like O'Shea, for example, he wasn't just the grumpy guy who doesn't want the new cop to babysit him while his boss is gone. He warms up to her, and you know, there's a little bit of like, oh, seriously, at the very beginning, but that goes quickly because why dwell on it? And you know, he plays as a reasonable fella. And again, the fact that they gave him like a little bit of an alcohol problem, but not to the point of where he's like a alcoholic, like no hope type case, was quite good. Lisa's character is a little bit more cheerful and whatnot, and she's from the main city and whatever, and she has like her city kind of vibes, but not comically either. So, like I said, all the characters were done quite well. I don't really have anything too bad to say about that, except for, well, I don't want to spoil anything. I'll just say there's a scene where there is a fire and it's never addressed. I guess that's kind of a spoiler, but not really. I'm not saying the situation or what it involves or anything, so I'll say that that's not a spoiler. Anyway, and it has no influence on the plot whatsoever, so whatever. Anyway, that's the only real thing. The rest of it's solid. What else? What else can I say? What else? Yeah, I mean, it's just a good time. Some of these movies that are like foreign movies, sometimes the accents can be way too much to understand for some people, but this one, it was not the case. Like, everyone spoke quite clearly with the accent, so it was fine. So if you're someone who has a little bit of trouble, you know, understanding accents, even if they're like UK or Irish or whatever, you're gonna be fine. It's completely fine. What else? The creature design, I liked it. It was not super generic, not super original, but you know, it's unique enough that it was fun. Oh man. Yeah, that's about all I have to say about that. Like, it's just a good time. Like, I would say it's kind of, I don't think it's quite as good as like Shaun of the Dead, but it's, I mean, some people either like Shaun of the Dead or you don't. But if you like Shaun of the Dead, it's not quite as good as Shaun of the Dead, but it has that same kind of vibe to it with a little bit less humor and a little bit more I don't know. I'd put it in that same category of film, comedy horror. That being said, I have to give this a rating, which I will do. And I'm going to give it a... I might even go sevens with this one. Let's give it a 7.1. I think it was really enjoyable. I'll probably watch it again. Like, I'm almost certain I will. Whether it's showing it to someone else or I'll just remember it one day and be like, oh, I should watch that again. So it is definitely worth a watch. So that answers that question. Should you watch it? Yeah, you should. It's great. It's on Shudder currently. I don't know if Shudder has different things for different countries, but Shudder in Canada. So I guess by association, AMC Plus, if you have the Shudder add-on, you could watch it on that too. I don't know what else it's streaming on, if anything, though. So that's what I watched it on. Yeah, check it out. 7.1 Grabbers. And yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. It was just a good time. So happy St. Patrick's Day, and cheers.